Let's just go over one of the other absolute inevitabilities with keeping animals. Anytime you got any type of animal feed, you're gonna have mice. I love to set traps. I love ambushing tiny little pestilence creatures like the mouse. I always think of the story in Samuel in the house of Dagon. Oh yeah, the Ark of the Covenant gets stolen from the children of Israel. The Philistines are like, you betcha we stole the mighty one of the Israelites. Yeah. Now we got it. Don't you peck my finger. Ah! They always peck the finger. Hi, beauty. Gosh, I like this bird. You're so lovely. Look at my tiny huntress down here. Look at that thing. Excellent birds. Anyways, they steal the Ark of the Covenant. When news of it came to the priests, he fell backwards and broke his neck, for he was a fat man. His sons were dead. Great story. His sons were ridiculous wolves living inside the house of Yahuwah. They lived at the tabernacle, and they were, doing the usual sexual idolatry and adultery all over the place, like you find at most churches. It's like the single biggest thing you find in the churches is people abusing people in that way. Dead serious. Pretty much everyone I've ever been to. And anyways, they died for that. Not a good idea. They were also threatening people and stealing the offering. Like the priests, some of like the priests would have received back as part of their, payments for being priests was like the right breast, the right thigh. There was like portions of the meal because it was all about a meal, covenant. When you come out, deal with what's going on in your life, sit down and eat a meal together, restore the relationship with Yahuwah. That was like the goal. They weren't doing a good job at that. And so, not a good idea. They were threatening people like, you stab this in there to the pot of boiling meat and you give me the biggest portion. Portion bigger than you should. Ah, she's returned with her beautiful bounty. Run, run. It's my favorite game to play. Keep away. Only for chickens. I hate it with people. It's a sad game. Somebody's always depressed. Anyways, they're running about. It's crazy. It's a wild story. Yahuwah sends this young little guy, Samuel, tiny little one, who's appointed and dedicated to the house of Yahuwah. Nazarite from birth. Go figure. Long hair and beards is a real feature of men. Shocking. No matter whatever your doctrines of demon church might say otherwise. It's not reality. It's not biblical. Biblical people have biblical-looking bodies, including all their hair. Not shaving. Go figure. Something to consider. It's poisonous to your health every time. You betcha. Anyways. Samuel gets dedicated by his incredible mother, Hannah. She's like crying out. She's barren. There's a lot of barren women because we've been eating poison for so long that we genetically can't even carry seed to term anymore. Seriously, it's mostly because of what we ate and our parents ate and our grandparents ate. Dead serious. Look it up. Spend some time studying infertility and where it comes from with expression of environmental problems and constraints over time. It's really sad. Anyways, doesn't take too long to fix. That being said, Hannah's like, I need a son. Please, Yah. I live with this other woman because polygamy's a mess. It's a filthy, horrible, awful thing. I don't care what you think about it. It's a mess every time you read about it in the scripture. Anyways, there's fighting wives. That's awful. Terrible situation. Check out Laban and Rachel for some more on that. It's horrible morning. It's a difficult time. She's crying out to Yahuwah. The priest thinks she's drunk because she's mumbling. And she's like, I am not drunk with wine. I am burning in soul. She prays. Yeah, he's like, yeah, maybe Yah bless you with that. May he open your womb. And he does. Yah hears the cry of Hannah. Hannah has one of the most beautiful prayers in the entire scriptures, by the way. Ladies, study it. Hannah is like an absolute blue jay. She's an absolute lovely woman to study her life. It's a crazy time. Samuel, the little boy that she promised, if Yahuwah gives her a son, she will dedicate that child to Yahuwah, the services of Yahuwah. He's born. She stays with him 3 years. She raises him to weaning. Then once he's weaned, she takes him to the house of Yahuwah and gives him over to the high priest. She's like, you raise him now. And then every year she would bring him, year by year, she would come up and visit him, and she would bring him some incredible little gifts, including a coat, like a tunic, a full, beautiful, lovely made tunic that his mother would make him. Well, as time goes on, the voice of Yahuwah, the word of Yahuwah, Yeshua, comes to him and starts to speak with him. And he starts to tell him, Samuel, right? He's like, listen, there's some problems in the house of Yahuwah, and I'm going to use you as my rod to deal with a lot of them. So he prophesies, tells him about what's going to go down. Hello, lovely Jubilee. Come on down with me. They prophesy about what the heck's going on in that area, and Yahuwah's not having any of it. And he's like, your sons are going to die, and I'm going to wipe out this priest line because it's a mess. It's disgusting. It's cursed.
One's fighting over something.
Find out what that something is, Jubilee.
Stop running.
Come on in here and see what it is.
Mouse?
Don't turn that on. It'll zap me. You just turn it on. That's the best fence starter right there. You gonna get in there? Chickens love Jubilee. Look at how they all come to her. There you go. Look at that. There's my venomous one. I love these little raptors. Poison hemlock. They're so cute. Anyways, she was gonna figure out in a second. The story goes on. The Philistines make an invasion into some territories in the Israelites' camp. Let's see. Yep. They make an invasion into the camp, into the cities of Israel. The Israelites, let's go to war. Wow, I don't know who's been tying this, but it is messy. It's chunky. Chunky like my hands. There you go. Come on in here. That's okay. There you go. Knot tying is a serious skill set we're going to have to do. No, there you are. That's my poisonous hemlock. That one.
Oh, they're tearing them out.
What do they got, Jimmy? Mouse. Yes, that's right. Anyways, Philistines attack. The Israelites are like, let's go fight them. And they're like, bring with us the Ark of the Covenant. So the two sons come carrying the Ark of the Covenant with them. They go to battle, and when the Ark of the Covenant rolls into camp, the people are like, yes! They send up a giant shout. The shout is so loud and thunderous that the Philistines are like, oh, no, it's not good. The mighty one of the Israelites is here. We're going to lose. But then somebody in the Israelite camp has these words of zealous encouragement to them and tell them, be strong, be a man, fight, and win. And they do.
I'm trying to chase this one.
That's because Yahuwah was literally about to bring to pass the word that he had promised to Samuel. It's game over, son, for them. So they attack. The Philistines win. They kill the sons of the priest, and they literally steal the Ark of the Covenant. They bring it back to their temple, their house of their mighty ones. You know, they're immortals. One of their immortals' names is Dagon. You can find him at Vatican City today. He sits at the Club of Rome. You know, the city on 7 hills, the great harlot city. The place where the Roman Catholics bow down at their house of idolatry and export the doctrines of demons to the nations. That guy, Dagon, fish cap guy. Yeah, he wears the fish cap guy because their god, their mighty one, was a hybridized creature that came out of the sea and had the fish head. Anyways, they also worship one of these little creatures like the mouse. Yahoo is ticked about them bringing the Ark of the Covenant into such a desecrated, disgusting place. So in the morning when the priests... Hold on a second. That's great. So in the morning, the priests walk out there and they go into their little temple and they're like, hail Dagon! You know, they're like, I'm mighty one who conquered the Israel. Oh no, Dagon has fallen over. The statue, the idol of Dagon, had fallen over on his face. And they're like, oh gosh, in front of the Ark of the Covenant. And they're like, put him back up. So they pick him back up and sit him up, right? And the next day, falls down on his face, breaks his hands, breaks his face. They're all like, this is not good. And then a plague from Yahuwah breaks out. And they're all like, this is bad. We got to get this thing out of here. It's toxic. So they move it to another place, another house of idols. And same thing basically repeats. And then all the people are like miscarrying. There's horrible pain and suffering. It's very similar to what happens in the Israelites when they're in their bondage house in Israel. I didn't check that. I know you love checking the nesting boxes. You get in there. I didn't check them.
That one that has that mouse.
Still got the mouse, Juby. She's still scoring. You keep getting them. Anyways. House of Dagonites. The Philistines are like, this is bad. They move it from city to city. Everywhere it goes, it brings plagues. They're like, we got to get this thing out of here. How do we get rid of it? And they're like, I don't know. Let's consult the priests. The priests are like, hey, listen, let's put it on an ox cart. Let's get an animal who's never carried a load. Let's get an animal who's never carried a load. Look, she's tearing that thing up. She's doing good. She gets like 1 or 2 bites in before she has to relocate. Hilarious. They put golden offerings on it, including what they say are hemorrhoids, because that was one of the plagues. They're like, oh gosh, I've got rectal warts coming out in lumps. So they make a bunch of golden lumps. They put that on the cart as an offering, and then they put a bunch of golden mice on there, which brings me to the mice. That's how it works in the Reynolds brain. It's like a noodly web of intricate stories and historical artifacts. Those little golden mice come back as the cattles are lowing as they walk back towards the land of the Philistines on their own, unguided. And the people are like, listen, if their mighty one wants to go home, he'll lead them home. And surely they do. He leads them home. And as soon as they get into the territory of the Israelites, ooh, she messed him up. As soon as they get into the territory of the Israelites, the cows stop. And they're all like, hello, we have brought you your precious Ark of the Covenant back. And the people are like, yes!
Won't let me shut the door. So that
Let's fix it. Let me see.
not.
Show me.
They're jumping up, and one is already in one nest. Look,
These are the
down
doors
to
I
there.
repaired.
This one is trying to jump up in one of these nesting boxes.
Ah, this one, huh? She likes to stand all the way on the top
I have
ledge.
a feeling that these chickens are going to peck my eyeball.
You have a feeling what?
They're going to peck my eyeball.
Don't be scared. You, Jubilee, are the chicken wrangler. They will sense your fear. Here you go. You tell them exactly what you need from them. What needs to happen now? Are there eggs? Are you done? Jubilee, are you done?
Yeah.
Seal it up.
This one
Seal it up.
always sheds the shaves.
It shuts shavings in there with it. Here, give it a little knock. It'll jam in that little door right there. There you go. Lock that thing. There you go. Where's your carabiner?
They're on the ground.
Lock them up. Let's not put them on the ground. It's a likely place for them to be lost. Yeah, poison hemlock there is going to try to eat it.
I know he
On to the next one, too. All right. The golden hemrods arrive, along with the golden mice and the Ark of the Covenant. The Israelites are like, yes, freedom, it's returned to us. They rejoice, they celebrate, it's super exciting. They're like, yes, it's come back to our land. They're like, what do we do with it? And they're like, I don't know, let's just park it over here. Wherever they park this thing, blessings come. You see, it's a real important story, real important lesson about obedience brings blessings, disobedience brings
They
curses.
hang up here on the knob.
They do. They do. Anyways, read Deuteronomy 28. It's a super important passage, especially in understanding the context of what happened here. The Israelites are pumped up. Well, some of the guys are so pumped and excited. They're like, let's have a peek inside, shall we? Ah! They die. That's what happens. Don't do that. Don't mess around. Don't be unkadosh and try to open up the kadosh places. You know what I'm saying? It's a big deal. Anyways, the story goes on. They end up finally relocating the Ark of the Covenant. It bounces around Israel for a long time, like a long time, years and years and years and years. It's weird. It's kind of a strange little story of journeys of where it makes until ultimately David ends up being the one to actually bring it back and place it in the place that it's going to be for a longer time in Jerusalem. Right? There's another big story of another guy who gets killed, struck dead. Uzzah. I think it's Uzzah. Oh, Uzzah? Dang it. He reaches his hand out to stabilize the cart as it's being brought back to Jerusalem. And David and them are all dancing mightily. And they're like, yes! We're bringing it back to the house of Yahuwah, which is a giant tent. It's not a rectangle. The most embarrassing lie you ever inherited when you were young. The house of Yahuwah is not shaped like a rectangle. That's a lie. Every single person that did that was misinformed and or an agent of falsehood. It's real. It's not real. What they're showing you is not accurate. Check out project314.org. It's insane, you guys, how many lies we've inherited, including a basic thing about following instructions. Like they didn't follow the recipe and they baked a very false cake, like a cake to another mighty one. Just saying. It's the most embarrassing dilemma that you can ever deal with in life is when you realize people have invested their entire lives into something that was incorrect. It's like they started with a false premise. And they're like, we can tweak numbers on this thing. You know, we don't actually have to follow the recipe book. But, you know, if we do, it doesn't make the structure that we want it to make. It's probably because you're conforming to the pattern of this world instead of being transformed by the renewing of your mind. Otherwise, you can't know what the will of Elohim is. Go figure. A bunch of people who refuse to accept what the will of Elohim is for their life have led us astray. Something to consider. Anyways, David corrects his mistakes, gets Levites, proper righteous men of Yah that were chosen by Yah to do the job, to carry it with the posts, giant long, 14-foot long poles. They carry it there to the city of Elohim, and there is great mighty dancing the whole way on the way. It's a wonderful story, you guys. Read the book of Samuel. Anytime you need just a daily dose of deliverance and excitement, man, read Samuel. That's my go-to. Or listen to it. I recorded the entire audiobook. Listen to it. It's so fun. It was like the first one I recorded because I couldn't wait. Anyways, next time you see those hemorrhoids, mice things, you'll think of that, I hope. So I set traps for those mice at night, and then I feed them to my chickens with glee. Train your chickens to be your mouse assassins. Train your children to be the cultivators and shepherds over those assassins. It's a great job. Jubilee, do you like looking after these chicken wranglers? Do you like being a chicken wrangler?
This chicken right here.
Tell me about her.
I do this all the time because it's fun. I'll show you what I do.
Best chicken feeders, you guys. Don't mess around.
I take a
That style.
handful of my feet.
Doesn't get wet.
What?
Doesn't get pooped in. Give Uzi a little morsel there. Uzi is the one who can't see the sky. Look at that
one
waddle.
already got some.
Look at that, she can't even see half the sky. Give her some, give her some.
No.
Hold it down, I want to see him feed.
They'll peck you.
It's okay, your skin regrows. It's a miracle.
Their skin doesn't regrow.
Have you tried?
No.
Want to find out? I bet it does, Jubilee. They're living creatures. Even Usnia's ridiculous little waddles. It does tickle. It's a little nerve-wracking. It's a little scary.
Yeah. Because you think they're going to, like, eat your hand.
But do they?
No.
Yeah. Be brave. Good job, honey. All right, y'all. There's my 15 minutes of morning context for you. This is where I sat down and had my context this morning. Get your 15 minutes of scriptural, revelatory insights into creation and nature. Find yourself somewhere to go hang out. Even if you got a tiny little patch of grass. There's a lot you can learn down here just by staring down. Trust me. There's a lot more you're going to learn there than you're going to learn looking at an iPhone. Just saying. Study up, y'all. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
The First Book of Samuel, narrated by Nathan Reynolds. Chapter 1. And there was a certain man of Raphathaim, Sophim, of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, son of Yeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. And he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man went up from his city year by year to worship and to slaughter to Yahuwah of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of Yahuwah, were there. And when the day came for Elkanah to make a slaughtering, he gave portions to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But although he loved Hannah, he gave only 1 portion to Hannah, because Yahuwah had shut up her womb. Moreover, her rival also provoked her greatly, to make her irritable, because Yahuwah had shut up her womb. And so he did, year by year. Whenever she went up to the house of Yahuwah, she was provoked, so that she wept and did not eat. And her husband Elkanah said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? And Hannah rose up after eating and drinking in Shiloh, while Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the hall of Yahuwah. And she was bitter in life, and prayed to Yahuwah, and wept greatly. And she made a vow, and said, O Yahuwah of hosts, if you would indeed look on the affliction of your female servant, and remember me, and not forget your female servant, but shall give your female servant seed of men, then I shall give him to Yahuwah all the days of his life, and let no razor come upon his head. And it came to be, as she kept on praying before Yahuwah, that Eli was watching her mouth. And Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved. But her voice was not heard, so that Eli thought she was drunk. Then Eli said to her, "How long are you going to be drunk? Put your wine away from you." And Hannah answered and said, "No, my master. I am a woman pained in spirit, and I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my being before Yahuwah. Do not take your female servant for a daughter of Belial, for it is out of my great concern and provocation that I have spoken until now." And Eli answered and said, "Go in peace, and the Elohim of Yisrael give you your petition which you have asked of him." And she said, "Let your female servant find favor in your eyes." And the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no more sad. And they rose up early in the morning and worshipped before Yahuwah, and returned and came to their house at Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and Yahuwah remembered her. And it came to be at the turn of days that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Shemuel, because I have asked Yahuwah for him. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to slaughter to Yahuwah the yearly slaughtering and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, "When the child is weaned, then I shall take him, and he shall appear before Yahuwah and remain forever there." And her husband Elkanah said to her, "Do what is good in your eyes. Remain until you have weaned him. Only let Yahuwah establish his word." And the woman remained and nursed her son until she had weaned him. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls and 1 ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of Yahuwah in Shiloh. And the child was young. And they slew a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, "Oh, my master, as your being lives, my master, I am the woman who stood here by you praying to Yahuwah. I prayed for this youth, and Yahuwah has granted me what I asked of him. So I have also loaned him to Yahuwah. All the days that he lives, he shall be loaned to Yahuwah." And he worshipped there before Yahuwah. Chapter 2. And Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in Yahuwah. My horn has been high in Yahuwah. My mouth is open wide over my enemies, for I have rejoiced in your deliverance. There is no one set apart like Yahuwah, for there is no one beside you, and there is no rock like our Elohim. Do not multiply words so proudly. Proudly, let no arrogance come from your mouth, for Yahuwah is an El of knowledge, and by him deeds are weighed. Bows of the mighty are broken, and those who stumble shall be girded with strength. The satisfied have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children pines away. Yahuwah puts to death and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. Yahuwah makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the dunghill to sit with princes and make them inherit a throne of esteem. For the supports of the earth belong to Yahuwah, and he has set the world upon them. He guards the feet of his loving committed ones, but the wrong ones are silent in darkness. For man does not become mighty by power. Those who oppress Yahuwah are shattered from the heavens. He thunders against them. Yahuwah judges the ends of the earth and gives strength to his sovereign and exalts the horn of his anointed. And Elkanah went to his house at Ramah, but the youth served Yahuwah before Eli the priest. And the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They did not know Yahuwah. And the ruling of the priests with the people was that when any man slaughtered a slaughtering, the priest's servant shall come with a 3-pronged flesh hook in his hand while the meat was cooking, and shall strike it into the basin, or kettle, or cauldron, or pot. And the priest would take for himself all that the flesh hook brought up. Thus they did in Shiloh to all Yisrael who came there. Also, before they burned the fat, the priest's servant would come and say to the man who slaughtered, "Give meat for the roasting to the priest, for he does not accept cooked meat from you, but raw." And if the man said to him, "Let the fat be burned up first, then take as much as your being desires," he would then answer, "No, but give it to me now, and if not, I shall take it by strength." And the sin of the young men was very great before Yahuwah, for the men despised the offering of Yahuwah. But Shemuel was attending before Yahuwah, a youth, wearing a linen shoulder garment. And his mother would make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to slaughter the yearly slaughtering. And Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, and said, "Yahuwah give you offspring from this woman, for the one she prayed for and gave to Yahuwah." Then they would go to their own home, and Yahuwah visited Hannah, so that she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters, while the young Shemuel grew before Yahuwah. And Eli was very old, and he had heard all that his sons were doing to all Yisrael, and how they lay with the women who were assembling at the door of the tent of appointment. And he said to them, "Why do you do deeds like this? For I hear of your evil deeds from all the people. No, my sons, for it is not a good report that I hear, making the people of Yahuwah transgress. If one man sins against another, Elohim shall judge him. But if a man sins against Yahuwah, who shall pray for him?" But they did not listen to the voice of their father, though Yahuwah was pleased to put them to death. And the young Shemuel was growing in stature and was in favor with Yahuwah and also with men. And a man of Elohim came to Eli and said to him, "Thus said Yahuwah, did I not clearly reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Mitzrayim in Pharaoh's house, even to choose him out of all the tribes of Yisrael to be my priest, to offer upon my slaughter place, to burn incense, and to wear a shoulder garment before me? And did I not give to the house of your father all the offerings of the children of Yisrael made by fire? Why do you kick at my slaughtering and my offering which I have commanded in my dwelling place, and esteem your sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the best of the offerings of Yisrael, my people? Therefore, Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael declares, I said indeed that your house and the house of your father would walk before me forever. But now Yahuwah declares, far be it from me. For those who are highly esteem me, I highly esteem, and those who despise me are lightly esteemed. See, the days are coming that I shall cut off your arm and the arm of your father's house, so that an old man shall not be found in your house. And you shall see an enemy in my dwelling place, despite all the good which Elohim does for Israel. and there shall not be an old man in your house forever. But any of your men whom I do not cut off from my slaughter place is to consume your eyes and grieve your life, and all the increase of your house die as men. And this is the sign to you that comes upon your 2 sons, upon Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they are going to die, both of them. And I shall raise up for myself a trustworthy priest who does according to what is in my heart and in my being. And I shall build him a steadfast house, and he shall walk before my anointed forever. And it shall be that everyone who is left in your house shall come and bow down to him for a piece of silver and a cake of bread, and say, Please, put me in one of the priestly positions to eat a piece of bread. Chapter 3. And the young Shemuel was serving Yahuwah before Eli. And the word of Yahuwah was rare in those days, no vision breaking forth. And it came to be in that day that Eli was lying down in his place, and his eyes had begun to grow so dim that he was unable to see. And the lamp of Elohim had not gone out in the Hekal of Yahuwah, where the ark of Elohim was. And Shemuel was lying down to sleep. And Yahuwah called Shemuel, and he answered, Here I am. He then ran to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. But he said, I did not call, lie down again. So he went and lay down. And again Yahuwah called, Shemuel. And Shemuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. But he answered, My son, I did not call. Lie down again. Now Shemuel did not yet know Yahuwah, and the word of Yahuwah was not yet revealed to him. And Yahuwah called Shemuel again the 3rd time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you did call me. Then Eli understood that Yahuwah had called the youth. So Eli said to Shemuel, Go, lie down. And it shall be, if he calls you, say, Speak, Yahuwah, for your servant hears. And Shemuel went and lay down in his place. And Yahuwah came and stood and called, as at other times, Shemuel, Shemuel. And Shemuel answered, Speak, for your servant hears. And Yahuwah said to Shemuel, See, I am doing a matter in Israel, at which both ears of everyone who hears it shall tingle. In that day I shall confirm against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house from the beginning to end. For I have declared to him that I am judging his house forever for the crookedness which he knows, because his sons cursed Elohim, and he did not rebuke them. Therefore, I have sworn to the house of Eli that the crookedness of the house of Eli shall never be atoned for by slaughtering or grain offerings. And Shemuel lay down until morning and opened the doors of the house of Yahuwah. And Shemuel was afraid to report the vision to Eli. Then Eli called Shemuel and said, Shemuel, my son? And he answered, Here I am. And he said, What is the word that he spoke to you? Please do not hide it from me. Elohim do so to you, and more also, if you hide a word from me of all the words that he spoke to you. And Shemuel reported to him all the words, and hid none from him. And he said, It is Yahuwah. Let him do what is good in his eyes. And Shemuel grew up, and Yahuwah was with him, and did not let any of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Shemuel had been established as a prophet of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah continued to appear in Shiloh, because Yahuwah revealed himself to Shemuel in Shiloh by the word of Yahuwah. Chapter 4. Thus the words of Shemuel was to all Israel. And Israel went out to battle against the Philistines, and encamped beside Eben ha-ezer, while the Philistines encamped in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in battle array against Israel. And when the battle spread, Israel was stricken by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men of the army in the field. And when the people came into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has Yahuwah smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah from Shiloh to us, so that he comes into our midst and saves us from the hands of our enemies." And the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah of hosts, dwelling between the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of Elohim. And when the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah came into the camp, all Israel shouted so loudly that the earth shook. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What is the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" When they knew that the ark of Yahuwah had come into the camp, the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "Elohim has come into the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for it has never been like this before. Woe to us! Who shall deliver us from the hands of these mighty Elohim? These are the Elohim who struck the Mitzrites with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and be men, you Philistines, that you do not become servants of the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Be men and fight." And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and every man fled to his tent. And the slaughter was very great, and there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. And the ark of Elohim was captured, and the two sons of Eli died, Hophni and Phinehas. And a man of Benjamin ran from the battle line the same day, and came to Shiloh with his garments torn and dirt upon his head. And he came in and saw Eli sitting on a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of Elohim. And the man came into the city and reported it, and all the city cried out. And Eli heard the noise of the outcry and said, "What is the noise of this uproar?" And the men came hastily and informed Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were so dim that he was unable to see. And the men said to Eli, "I am he who came from the battle, and I fled today from the battle line." And he said, "What was the matter, my son?" And the messenger answered and said, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has been a great slaughter among the people. And your two sons have died, Hophni and Phinehas, and the ark of Elohim has been captured." And it came to be, when he made mention of the ark of Elohim, that Eli fell off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died. For the man was old and heavy, and he ruled Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was pregnant, about to bear. And when she heard the news that the ark of Elohim was captured, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and gave birth, because her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman who stood by her said, "Do not fear, for you have borne a son." But she did not answer, nor did she set her heart to it. She called him Ichabod, saying, "The esteem has departed from Yisrael, because the ark of Elohim was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband." And she said, "The esteem has departed from Yisrael, for the ark of Elohim was taken." Chapter 5. And the Philistines took the ark of Elohim and brought it from Even Ha'ezer to Ashdod. And the Philistines took the ark of Elohim and brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And the Ashdodites rose early in the morning and saw Dagon fallen on its face to the ground before the ark of Yahuwah. So they took Dagon and put it in its place again. And they arose early the next morning and saw Dagon fallen on its face to the ground before the ark of Yahuwah, and the head of Dagon and both of the palms of its hands cut off on the threshold. Only Dagon itself was left of it. That is why to this day the priests of Dagon and all who come into Dagon's house do not tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod. But the hand of Yahuwah was heavy on the Ashdodites, and he wasted them and struck them with tumors, Ashdod and its borders. And when the men of Ashdod saw this, they said, "Let not the ark of Elohim of Israel remain with us, for his hand has been hard on us, and on Dagon our mighty one." Then they sent and gathered to them all the princes of the Philistines and said, "What do we do with the ark of Elohim of Israel?" And they answered, "Let the ark of Elohim of Israel be removed to Gath." And they removed the ark of Elohim of Israel. And it came to be, after they removed it, that the hand of Yahuwah was against the city with a very great destruction. And he struck the men of the city from the least to the greatest, and tumors broke out on them. They then sent the ark of Elohim to Ekron. And it came to be, as the ark of Elohim came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, "They have removed the ark of Elohim of Israel to us, to kill us and our people." And they sent and gathered together all the princes of the Philistines and said, "Send away the ark of Elohim of Israel, and let it return to its own place, so that it does not kill us and our people." For there had come a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of Elohim was very heavy there. And the men who did not die were stricken with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to the heavens. Chapter 6. And the ark of Yahuwah was in the field of the Philistines for 7 new moons. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, "What do we do with the ark of Yahuwah? Let us know with what we should send it to its place." And they said, "If you send away the ark of Elohim of Israel, do not send it empty, but you shall certainly return it to him with a guilt offering. Then you are going to be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand does not turn aside from you." And they said, "What is the guilt offering which we return to him?" And they answered, "The number of the princes of the Philistines, 5 golden tumors, and 5 golden rats, for the same plague was on all of you, and on your princes. And you shall make images of your tumors, and images of your rats that ruin the land, and you shall give esteem to the Elohim of Israel. It could be that he does lift his hand from you, from your mighty ones, and from your land. And why do you harden your hearts as the Mitzrites? And Pharaoh hardened their hearts, when he had severely dealt with them. Did they not send them away? And they went? And now take and make a new wagon, 2 milk cows which have never been yoked, and hitch the cows to the wagon, and take their calves home away from them. And take the ark of Yahuwah and put it on the wagon, and put the objects of gold which you are returning to him as a guilt offering in a chest by its side, and send it away, and it shall go. And you shall see if it goes up the way to its own border, to Beth Shemesh. Then he has done this great evil, but if not, then we shall know that his hand has not come against us. An accident it was to us." And the men did so, and took 2 milk cows, and hitched them up to the wagon, and shut up their calves at home. And they put the ark of Yahuwah on the wagon, and the chests with the gold rats and the images of their tumors. And the cows went straight for the way to Beth Shemesh, and went along the highway, bellowing as they went, and did not turn aside right or left. And the princes of the Philistines went after them to the border of Beth Shemesh. And they of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley. And they lifted their eyes and saw the ark, and rejoiced to see it. And the wagon came into the field of Yehoshua of Beth Shemesh, and stood there. And there was a great stone. So they split the wood of the wagon, and offered the cows as an ascending offering to Yahuwah. And the Levites took down the ark of Yahuwah, and the chest that was with it, in which were the objects of gold, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered ascending offerings, and slaughterings the same day to Yahuwah. And when the 5 princes of the Philistines saw it, they returned to Ekron the same day. And these are the gold tumors which the Philistines returned as a guilt offering to Yahuwah: 1 for Ashdod, 1 for Azah, 1 for Ashkelon, 1 for Gath, 1 for Ekron. And the gold rats by the number of all the cities of the Philistines, belonging to the 5 princes, both walled cities and country villages, even as far as the great meadow on which they placed the ark of Yahuwah, remain to this day in the field of Yehoshua of Beth Shemesh. And he struck among the men of Beth Shemesh, for they had looked into the ark of Yahuwah. He struck among the people 70 men. And the people mourned, because Yahuwah struck among the people a great smiting. And the men of Beth Shemesh said, "Who is able to stand before this set apart Yahuwah Elohim? And to whom shall he go from us?" And they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Yearim, saying, "The Philistines have brought back the ark of Yahuwah. Come down, take it up to you." Chapter 7. And the men of Kiriath Yearim came and took the ark of Yahuwah, and brought it into the house of Abinadab on the hill, and set apart Eleazar his son to guard the ark of Yahuwah. And it came to be from the day that the ark remained in Kiriath Yearim, the time increased. It came to be 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after Yahuwah. And Shemuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, "If you return to Yahuwah with all your hearts, then put away the foreign mighty ones and Ashtaroth from among you, and prepare your hearts for Yahuwah, and serve him only, so that he delivers you from the hand of the Philistines." And the children of Israel put away the Baals and Ashtaroth, and served Yahuwah only. And Shemuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mitzpah, and let me pray to Yahuwah for you." And they gathered to Mitzpah, and drew water, and poured it out before Yahuwah. And they fasted that day, and said there, "We have sinned against Yahuwah." And Shemuel rightly ruled the children of Israel at Mitzpah. And when the Philistines heard that the children of Israel had gathered together in Mitzpah, the princes of the Philistines went up against Israel. And the children of Israel heard of it, and were afraid of the Philistines. And the children of Israel said to Shemuel, "Do not cease to cry out to Yahuwah our Elohim for us, that he would save us from the hand of the Philistines." And Shemuel took a suckling lamb, and offered it as an ascending offering completely to Yahuwah. And Shemuel cried out to Yahuwah for Yisrael, and Yahuwah answered him. And it came to be, as Shemuel offered up the ascending offering, the Philistines drew near to battle against Israel. But Yahuwah thundered with a great noise on that day on the Philistines, and troubled them, and they were smitten before Yisrael. And the men of Yisrael went out from Mitzpah, and pursued the Philistines, and struck them as far as below Beth-kar. And Shemuel took a stone, and set it up between Mitzpah and Shin, and called the name Eben Ha-ezer, saying, Thus far Yahuwah has helped us. Thus the Philistines were humbled, and no longer came into the border of Israel. And the hand of Yahuwah was against the Philistines all the days of Shemuel. And the cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were returned to Israel, from Ekron to Gath. And Israel recovered its border from the hands of the Philistines. And there was peace between Israel and the Amorites. And Shemuel rightly ruled Israel all the days of his life. And each year he made the rounds of Bethel and Gilgal and Mitzpah, and rightly ruled Israel in all those places. Then he returned to Ramah, for his home was there. And there he rightly ruled Israel, and there he built a slaughtering place to Yahuwah. Chapter 8. And it came to be when Shemuel was old, that he made his sons rulers over Israel. And the name of his firstborn was Yoel, and the name of his second, Abiah, rulers in Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways, and turned aside after own gain, and took bribes, and twisted right ruling. And all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Shemuel at Ramah, and said to him, Look, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint for us a sovereign to rule over us like all the nations. But the word was evil in the eyes of Shemuel when they said, Give us a sovereign to rule us. So Shemuel prayed to Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Shemuel, Listen to the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from reigning over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Mitzrayim, even to this day, forsaking me and serving other mighty ones. So they are doing it to you too. And now listen to their voice, but you shall certainly warn them, and shall make known to them the ruling of the sovereign who does reign over them. And Shemuel spoke all the words of Yahuwah to the people, who asked him for a sovereign, and said, This is the ruling of the sovereign, who does reign over you. He shall take your sons and appoint them for his own chariots, and to be his horsemen. And they shall run before his chariots, and appoint commanders over his thousands, and commanders over his 50s, or to plow his ground, and reap his harvest, or to make his weapons and equipment for his chariots. And your daughters he is going to take to be perfumers, and cooks, and bakers, and the best of your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive trees he is going to take and give them to his servants. And 1/10 of your grain and your vintage he is going to take and give it to his officers and servants, and your male servants and your female servants, and your best young men and your donkeys he is going to take and use for his own work. 1/10 of your sheep he is going to take, and you are to be his servants. And you shall cry out in that day because of your sovereign, whom you have chosen for yourselves. But Yahuwah is not going to answer you in that day. However, the people refused to listen to the voice of Shemuel and said, No, but let a sovereign be over us. Then we shall be, we also like all the nations, and our sovereign shall rule us, and go out before us and fight our battles. And Shemuel heard all the words of the people, and he repeated them in the hearing of Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Shemuel, listen to their voice, and make them a sovereign. And Shemuel said to the men of Israel, Each of you go to his city.